Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Elyse Archer is the founder of She Sells, a coaching program and community for high-earning women in sales. Her husband, Jason Robustelli, is a full-time dad and prospective medical student. When COVID hit, their relationship was put to the test. It was their ability to prioritize each other and communicate their needs that kept their marriage afloat and growing through a season of high demands and potential relationship stressors. Join us and learn how this young and committed couple successfully navigated the rough waters that we all find ourselves on, and how they came through a potentially damaging storm stronger and better equipped. We are so excited on the Kickass Couples Podcast today to welcome Jason Robustelli and Elyse Archer. Elyse, this is a special day for us. It's almost like a homecoming because you help birth the Kickass Couples Podcast. And I was telling my wife today, it's kind of like you're the midwife, right? You were coaching and screaming, you can do it. Yes, you can.
You can do it.
So this has special meaning for us because even though this is going to be episode 40 something on our podcast, you really helped us get this going. So we're so glad to have you and your partner right there, the smiling tech guru who helped us get going today. So welcome to the Kick-Ass Couples Podcast.
Oh, thank you. We're so happy to be here. We're very excited. It's so cool to see what you guys have done in a very short amount of time and to see the birthing of the podcast. And it's amazing. So we're thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Well, we like to start off every podcast kind of with the same question. And Jason, I'm going to actually ask you to go first if you don't mind. Kim and I would love to know what makes you a kick-ass couple.
It's a good thing I had some coffee this morning. So I think the defining figure in our relationship is the way we communicate and problem solve between the two of us. A lot of what we do day to day, week to week, all year is really dependent a lot on our communication style. There's no yelling. There is frustration sometimes, but there's no yelling. It's clear communication, eye contact. It is clarification of points that may have come across not so great. Hint, hint, me saying weird things. So it's a lot of that stuff that I really believe, a lot of things wouldn't be possible. And noticing when each other is really getting frustrated or flustered or needs some help. We're definitely working on that right now. But a lot of that stuff helps everything go smoother. Because, payments aren't missed on like day-to-day credit cards or bills or something. It's like, all that stuff is taken care of. Our child, 18 months, is being taken care of. We're handing off. And when she needs to work, she clearly defines when she needs to do things. And when I need to do things, I have a clear definition of what needs to happen. So, and then what you achieve is really up to kind of you in a kind of a broad sense, because I can't be in here like massaging your shoulders being like, you can do this coaching, honey. You just get it. all day. You know, I'm not the one doing that. She's the one running her business and doing all of her stuff. And me being in healthcare, she's not going to be standing behind me and being like, you can do CPR really good. It's okay. So it's a lot of those just intersections where our lives cross, and then keeping the romance, which is a whole other podcast, I feel.
I'll touch on that a little bit today, a little later, but that's great. So it sounds like what I heard you say is what's at the heart of your success is the quality communication, because you're doing the things that make the connections that allow you to handle and face things together. And I love that. Elyse, how about you? What would you say about what makes you a kick-ass couple?
Oh, I love the question, and I would second everything you said, babe. And I think the thing I would add is just we're both avid about doing the inner work. Like, we're both very conscious of that, and I think we're conscious of in each other. We're going to mirror to each other the parts of us that need to be healed. So we're both serious about inner child work. We're both we're willing to take ownership. You've taught me a lot about taking ownership and accountability, and that's been really powerful. But we're both aware when there's a trigger, like what it is, and that it's usually something from childhood that the other one is mirroring back to us. So we take responsibility and be like, that's actually not about you. That's about something with my dad or something with my mom. And we can say, okay, let's work. I'm going to go work on healing this part of me. And we work through it together. So,
or we have the wisdom to be like, get out of the house.
You gotta go right now.
Go take a walk somewhere. And she's done that to me often, because I do my best thinking when I'm walking around in the woods, because I grew up in Maine. So that's definitely a wooded area. Yeah. And then I would like to add a lot of self-awareness, because if you're not being self-aware of how you're coming across, that's a big problem, because then, I was very forward and clear cut about what I was saying, and that could be very cutting and kind of abrasive. So I've had to soften my language significantly over the last several years, 8-10 years, to really make it come across effectively.
This is a great segue into our next question, which is, I believe we are a product of the people who raised us. And so I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Elyse, on what love looked like in your family when you were growing up. A little bit about your history and what your parents maybe displayed to you.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh. Well, I will say, I know both of my parents, they loved us very much, and they had very different styles too. So my mom was very communicative about it, very, she did everything she knew to help me and my sister know that we were loved. And I have close relationships with both my parents to this day. So I'll say all with that. My dad wasn't quite as communicative. And so he was always there, but it just wasn't his way of showing affection to speak words of affirmation. And that's something that I think is really important to me. So I've had to take ownership of that is important to me. And I've had to learn to communicate that to you, and you, Jason, listens and incorporates that into how he speaks to me. But I think, there's a lot that we've learned from how we experienced love growing up, and parts of it that I love and that I want to incorporate in what we're doing. And then parts of it too, that I say, we want to do it a little differently moving forward.
Great. How about you, Jason? We have a lot of grandpa in our bones. So tell me a little bit about what love looked like in your family when you were growing up.
I think, I don't think I've ever didn't know that I was loved. There was a lot of that language, saying goodnight, I love you, all that stuff. I think there's a difference, and I'm diving into this as, with my coach pretty soon here, about a measure of intimacy. For me, it was this level of intimacy that was a little bit different. And I think when I talked to my coach about this, he kind of laughed. He's like, oh, you're not alone in that. Because I'm working at having a child really puts up a giant mirror and really helps you reflect on different things. But with him, I'm making a conscious effort to like give him hugs and tell him I love him and then explain what's on my mind, because intimacy to me is more about like sharing emotionally where you're at, not necessarily dumping all your stuff on each other and being like, oh man, I'm so stressed out about school and job and all these, taxes, anything else that could cause stress in your life, and talking about that incessantly. It's more about the like emotional communication. Like, yeah, I feel that way too. I really enjoy this. This is wonderful. I love you. All that kind of stuff, and pulling love and intimacy together. Because I felt like I have a close relationship with my parents as well, and I love them to death. But a lot of that was kind of left out. The love and the physical affection was there, but the intimate part of sharing feelings of like, this is frustrating to me, so just give me a second, or really diving into the emotional aspect of who my parents were was a hard place for me, and I'm learning a lot about that right now in my life. So
I think so much of that has to do with vulnerability, just being able to speak it, right? If you don't grow up and it's not comfortable to you, it's really hard to bring that to your next relationship.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it kind of runs right into, so we have 3 C's that we talk about. There are 3 of the main pillars in our platform, and those 3 C's are commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. We want to jump right into commitment. And so I'd love to know, Elyse, I'll ask you to answer this first. What does commitment look like in your relationship with Jason?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Yeah, I would say, one of the things that I love about Jason, and it's different from my background, is he comes from a family where his parents are still together. And I come from a family of divorced parents, and I did have a divorce before I met Jason. So it's kind of like there's been a difference in our backgrounds with how we were raised with marriage and what it is. And I think one of the things that I love about you that you said in some way or form earlier was like this is it, like we're with marriage it should be, but I didn't have that conditioning in that background per se. So when we got together, it was like no matter what, like the D word is not an option in our vocabulary. Like we're not going there. And so to me, when you say that, and it's like, no, we're going to grow together in this, like no matter what. I've learned that it's always about fighting for the relationship, and knowing that kind of my conditioning and my background was if something gets hard, you like make the other person wrong for it, or you walk out. And that's not how we roll in this relationship. So to me, the commitment is like we're fighting for each other, we're fighting for the relationship, and if we need to step out for a minute and take a walk or do whatever we do, but we always come back together and talk about what's really going on deep down and how we can use it to grow more together.
Yeah, what I love hearing you say is that there's no plan B. We are in this no matter what. We are going to resolve. We're going to, if we have to take a break and take a breath and maybe just self-regulate a little bit, but we're going to come back together and we're going to make this work.
That's great. And it sounds like it's a new skill for you to learn. It wasn't modeled for you growing up, what I heard you say, and you came with it based on your own personal experience. Like, I got to learn something new here, right? And what this is going to be. And it's great that you have that together. And so, Jason, how about you? What does commitment look like for you in your relationship with Elyse?
It's definitely changed over since we got married to now. It's like every 5 years, you got to check back in and be like, hey, who are we now and what's going on? Because we were, I don't know, I was 28, you were 31, 32 when we got married. Now I'm 33. And we have a child. And I've gone through leadership and, different training and work. And now I'm in school for med school. So now she's a CEO of her own business, a very successful one. So it's like the people that we were are no longer. the people that we are have to now kind of look at where we're at and be like, wait a minute, do I still enjoy this? Do I still want to, and I'm not talking about the relationship. I'm talking about like things that we do and, the ways that we interact with each other, because she's definitely done a lot of inner work on herself, and, 2020, 2021, and we're 2 really rough years in healthcare, which deeply affected me on the professional level. Which kind of sent me into a weird tailspin that I came out of when 2022 hit. I don't know what happened. Maybe it had something to do with Joe Dispenza's event, but there's a little plug for him. But it woke me up and made me realize that I'm in a spot where I don't know what to do. The first 5 years were kind of like, okay, we can navigate this and, work through these problems. But now we're at this level where it's like, hold up, we're new people, we're in a new position, we need to reassess ourselves and where our relationships at. And then the exciting part is that you get to recreate your relationship. So it kind of feels to me now like we're dating again and we're getting to know each other again, because our conversations are somewhat the same, but they're also changing and morphing as we go. And in order to help each other, we have to grow. The problem is if you don't grow, like I wasn't last year, I was just head to the books and getting myself really stressed out. That wasn't a good place to be. And we both realized it because we were going, she was going up, I was going down. We kind of met at some point. And that little up down situation isn't a good spot for a couple to be, because you both, it's okay to take a dip every once in a while because the other one can help. She really gave it to me the other day.
With love, with the most love in my heart.
With deep love.
It was carefrontation, right?
Yes. Yes. And I recognized that I was in a pity party mode. And I said to myself after that conversation, you need to pick yourself up and just take a deep breath, take ownership that you were in a little bit of a pity mood, and move forward, because this isn't helpful. This isn't good. Like, let's work on ourselves. Let's go exercise. Let's meditate. Let's take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all that stuff, so we can show up as the best version. Because if you don't, then your head is in a different area.
Sure.
And then it's a whole different challenge.
Yeah. What I hear you saying is that you are willing to accept her influence. And that's really huge in a relationship. That's a game changer. And you are willing to take a step back and say, you know what? You're right. I hear you. And I need to make some changes. So I love hearing that. I'm sure that our listeners can really relate to that same situation.
Yeah, you're not always in the same spots. And it's kind of the regulation. And also, I heard you both say you've evolved. Not out of each other, but you're keeping up with and keeping the pulse on what do you have to do to better support each other now? New circumstance. There's a child. There's 2 careers. There's moves. There's all those different things are coming in. And that kind of leads to our next pillar.
Yeah. Our second pillar of our 3 C's is communication. And Jason, you touched on that right at the very beginning on what makes you a kick-ass couple. So I want to ask you a little bit more about how you communicate with each other. You guys are both busy. You're in med school. She is CEO of her own company. I know you have a toddler at home. How do you find the time? Do you make the time? Do you create the time? What does communication look like in your relationship?
Yeah.
This is communication right now. Last year we were like 2 ships just crossing paths. And we would communicate and wave little flags as we went by to let the other know what was going on. But the surface level stuff doesn't work long term. And if we're just talking about, oh, how was your day? Oh, it was good. I had the child and he drew some stuff. Oh, let's go see what he drew. You're off the topic of who of the two of you. Like it just doesn't go back and segue back into, hey, like, where are you emotionally today? Are you feeling okay? Is there something that happened? And often a screaming child doesn't necessarily help with that communication. So there are micro moments in time where we get to make eye contact and physical contact and vocal contact where we just make it count. And it's not necessarily a big conversation that needs to be had. It's a lot of these smaller, like, hey, how are you? Like a low key conversation in the ear where it's like, hey, how are you doing? You okay? Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm a little bit, on edge with X, Y, and Z. This is a little bit hard for me today. Oh, okay. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. But, you give each other some emotional, physical support just right then and there, and that really helps. We weren't doing that a lot last year, and that honestly that came down to me a lot of the time. So now that I've entered the game yet again, or the proverbial arena, it's become a lot better because I often have to drive that contact, because if she's in business mode and you can always tell when she's real, the house goes, and there's like a whirlwind that starts like kicking up in the background, and things like start getting put back into place. And then there's about 20 more dishes in the sink, and it's like, oh, wow. Okay. What's happening here? You have to like take your lasso, get her in the, and get her. And that's kind of my job sometimes.
To lasso me.
To lasso her. Yeah. And to get her into the corner for a second for those conversations. Because if I don't, I'm in a different mode. I'm not working. I'm taking care of a child. So a lot of the time there's playtime. She's working. She's talking to people with heavy issues. She's CEOing and doing a lot of different things throughout the day that are very business related. So popping out of that energy and into a more loving energy for like 5 seconds is super important. So that's a skill that I've had to learn personally, because before I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna let you do your thing. But that's actually damaging, because she subconsciously feels stress from not having that reassurance from me. So that was a little thing that I picked up from both of us.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now.
We need to have some check-ins, right? We just need to connect with each other, even if it's just on a really short, small level. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can help you with? That has really made a big difference in how you support each other.
Yeah.
How about you?
For sure.
Tell me a little bit about how you feel communication works with you and Jason.
Yeah. I think we've learned so much through each other and through amazing coaching and mentoring that we've received over the years. And I'd say a few things that are the biggest game changers. One is we do prioritize weekly date night now, which last year with baby and with COVID, it didn't happen as much. That had been part of our relationship before that we had stopped doing. And it's so critical. Like whatever that looks like, I think in a relationship, having a set time, at least once a week if you can, that's just about us to get together and communicate. So for us, Wednesday night is date night. That makes a big difference. And then I'll say one of the things that one of my coaches said to me recently that really shifted my mindset on things. She was like, you have to almost treat your marriage like a business, not in a way where you take all the fun and the romance out of it. But she said, if you were like, think about how much energy and effort you're pouring into the relationship versus your business. And for me, my safe zone was always my business. Like, that's my comfort zone. I know how to excel there. I wasn't pouring that same level of attention and energy and effort into our relationship. Because I think there are parts of it that sometimes you just, like, I was just taking things for granted. And I've learned you really can't do that. So to your point before of shifting gears from business mode to personal mode, one of the things I've been doing lately that has been really helpful is just literally walking out the doors of the office and breathing and mentally envisioning that work is in the office and I'm walking out now because I'm going to walk into mom mode and wife mode, and just breathing and setting the intention of how do I want to show up in this moment. And then looking at, if I want our relationship to grow and thrive, what do I need to do to fuel it? And what sort of level of effort do I need to put into communicating with him and letting him know that he matters and is needed and is so valued? Because there was a time where I was just really taking that for granted that he knew. And I don't think we always know. So those few things have really been game changers.
A big part of, being a kick-ass couple, I believe, is prioritizing your relationship. Just like you said, that's huge. That's why we're here, to talk about prioritization. And I really believe that date nights are a game changer, definitely. So keep doing that.
Yeah, you got to have those points of connection and, and communication and the commitment all leading together. Kind of our third pillar point we want to talk about is conflict resolution. Obviously, stuff comes up, and more often than not, it's small stuff, and it may be just what's on the surface. But when we dig, we find out that's, we always give the joke, it's not about taking out the trash. You didn't take out the trash. It's not that the trash didn't make it from the kitchen to the can outside. It's you're not listening to me. You're not invested. You're not present, whatever it might be. So, Elyse, I want to ask you first, when conflicts do arise, how do the two of you navigate that, or how do you work to resolve problems or issues that come up in your relationship?
Yeah, I've learned a ton. I think I've learned so much from Jason in this arena. I grew up in a household where there wasn't ever any fighting. So everything was under the surface. So there was actually a lot of conflict and tension going on, but it was never vocalized. So I never knew how to do that. And it still to this day feels uncomfortable, like very uncomfortable to say, I'm feeling upset because of this, or I'm feeling angry because of this. So he's created an environment where I feel comfortable, like more comfortable than I would otherwise, going to him and saying, blah, blah, blah is going on. So it's been years, literally years of kind of edging into that and knowing it's okay to bring up something that's a challenge, and I don't have to worry that he's going to leave or not be there. And again, a lot of that goes to you. So I think you're going to have a really good answer on this question. But one of the things that I most appreciate, just kind of going back to the scenario you talked about the other day, is I had shared something that was upsetting. And he took complete ownership. Like, I thought he was going to say, here's my side and here's what's going on. And I don't know why I thought that, because you don't do that. But he was like, you know what, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. And I've thought about it, and here's like, I agree. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I was just like, gosh, like it takes, I think, a very strong person to do that and not go into defense mode. And so I'm learning that from him too, on both sides. But I think you're the master of this.
Ooh.
Well,
Maybe.
All right. I want to hear directly from the ninja himself.
Yeah.
way to own your stuff, though, because we have to do that. We have to be able to show up and own our stuff and let our spouse be able to give us influence and tell us what's really on their heart and on their mind. And if we've messed up, or if we need to switch it up, say it. I'm wrong. Make some changes. That's how we grow together.
Yeah,
for sure.
I guess you want my answer now. Wait, how long do we have? Conflict resolution for me, we were talking about this a little bit last night. I realized at one point that my inability in my younger years to communicate how I was feeling and what was going on in my brain really affected the other person, because whether I knew it or not, even though I thought I was lying very good to myself and to them, subconsciously something else is happening. And it comes out in some way, shape, or form. There's always some sort of behavior. There's always it's the jelly argument in the grocery store. I don't want that jelly. I want this jelly. Why do you want that jelly? I don't know. I want this jelly. I don't want that jelly. And it's the same thing with the trash. Why don't you take the trash out? What are you doing? Like, the trash is right there. You did not see the trash. So stuff like that, as soon as we get snippy with each other, there's obviously something that we are glossing over that isn't being resolved. Or body language. I can always tell when something's up with her because of her body language and energetic demeanor. And that's my own special little gift with her, because she couldn't escape me for the first couple of years of our relationship.
Like, how do you know?
Yeah, she was all upset, and she was trying to do her thing, and I was like, oh no, we're gonna talk about this, because you're driving me nuts doing whatever you're doing over there. I want to hear what's on your mind. But now it's not good enough to just be like, I want to hear what's on your mind, because I have to step back, give her the space to communicate, clarify what she's saying, not take it personally on the ego-based level, but know when I need to take ownership of something, and know when she just needs to get something off of her chest, because we've had a few conversations where she's talking about something that she's feeling, and she's trying to tell me that it's not about me. This is something that is internal to her that she's struggling with. And I'm giving her opinion. I'm trying to fix it. I'm getting offended. I'm going through the man things in my head. Oh, you have a problem. Let me fix this for you. Oh, you have an issue. This is what you do. It's stepping back from that part of being a man and just, really having the cojones to step into it, because it takes a concerted energy and focus sometimes when you're initially doing it to really step back and be conscious of what's going on. Because if I'm doing something and she's coming up to me and she's like, I need to talk, and I'm not paying attention, that becomes a whole conversation throughout the day of what I did initially and how I wasn't being. And then we can get to the heart of what she was talking about, which takes time. And that's where a lot of I think stressors come from in relationships, with ours at least. It's, how I'm being. And that has honestly been something I've decided to do years ago, and now is evolving into something that is helpful. Because I did see my parents argue. I did hear them yell at each other, but it wasn't a lot of yelling and screaming. It was raised voices and kind of back and forth.
Right, not a lot of disrespect.
Yeah, not disrespect. Just, there's anger there, it's like two dogs kind of growling it out, and then they're friends afterwards. So there was a lot of no, I think we should do this. I think we should do this, but what about this? And blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot of that. So I knew kind of how the conversations should play out. It's not yelling and screaming. It's not silence, but it is truthful communication. Taking your ego out of it. The ego has a really good tendency to try to keep you safe, and it will definitely ruin things in about 5 seconds.
For sure. Well, we have 14 pillars that we believe it takes to make a successful relationship. And we talked about the first 3, but there's 11 more. Do you all have the pillar sheet in front of you? It's a list of the 14 pillars. Did that come in?
Let's pull it up.
Ooh, this is the setup. It might be another page.
I don't know that we do. Sorry, guys.
I don't think that we do.
No worries.
That's okay.
You want to read them?
Yeah, so I'm going to read these off to you briefly, and then you guys tell me, and as I read them, think of which one sticks out to you most, and that you would like to touch on briefly. We have trust and honesty, patience, intimacy, lasting love, selflessness, unity, servant leadership, faith and moral code, appreciation, security, and fun and humor.
Ooh, those are so good.
So, Elyse, as we read those off, Elyse, which one kind of jumps out at you, or do you think strikes a chord as being important in your relationship?
Oh my gosh. I'll say the one that I know I'm working on most actively right now is the unity piece. And I was just actually thinking about this while you were talking before, babe, because a lot of, again, it's like I get to learn all this through us, which is great. Growing up, there wasn't like the unity of my parents working together as a team in a lot of ways. It was kind of like me versus you. So I noticed some of, even just like subconsciously, that dynamic in me showing up as we've gone deeper in our relationship. And it's so interesting, like this conditioning, these paradigms, they run so deep and we often don't even realize that that's what's going on. But it's really just been a shift. Again, it sounds obvious that of course we want to work on unity together. But I think when that's not always what's modeled, like you do have to learn it. And so just learning to think about like almost the relationship between us as like a separate entity and a separate being that we're like loving and caring for and nurturing. And it's us like sitting together working on things rather than sitting on the opposite side of the table being against each other. Just little things like that I'm actively working on right now too. But that one really speaks to me because I think they're all game changers, but I think that one's a big game changer for sure.
And it sounds like you're evolving as a team.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
How about you, Jason? Is there one of those pillars that really stood out to you?
Not just one. I mean,
every single one.
They're all great.
They're so good.
Sometimes we just really resonate with one.
Yeah. So, man, there's a lot in there. I feel like I'm walking through a Grecian like pillar farm over here or something. But
Pillar farm.
I've always had this thing about what was the fun one?
Yes, fun and humor.
Fun and humor. So I am a jovial, sort of lighthearted type person. It's funny that I go into healthcare, but you'd be surprised how much people need to laugh laying in a hospital bed. Actually, maybe you're not that surprised. But I think the fun and humor part is probably the one that really stands out to me as like one of my core abilities. And then the love and intimacy, those two separate pillars, to me, I feel like I'm starting to feel like those go so hand in hand. They're almost like the same coin, different faces, in my mind. And I'm enjoying contemplating and learning and thinking about that for myself. Right. Because the fun and humor stuff I've got down. If she's real upset with me or we've had a tense conversation, I lick her in the face.
He does. He's not even kidding. I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah. It pops her right out. It makes her laugh.
Breaks the mesmerism. That's right. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to write that down.
Sorry, Kim, if that happens later.
Yeah.
Well, if he starts licking me, I'm in trouble.
Watch out. But don't do it if you're really angry with each other and she's about to punch you.
I love it. Well, that's, you got to have those points of levity and fun, because playing and having fun and humor, we can take ourselves so seriously sometimes. And I love the fact that you point that out, and, and that you're willing to do that, because it does kind of make you, it's hard not to laugh when somebody licks you on the face, right?
If you're wearing makeup, this is probably a good thing. I got a tongue full of makeup the other day.
Sure, really not wearing makeup first.
Yeah. Or just do a small area. I don't know.
So I would love to kind of come back to you guys and ask a question. I know that our time together is coming to a close in a few minutes here, but I would like to know, and Jason, I want to hear from you first. If you had to go back to your unmarried self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you say to yourself? What would be the advice you give your unmarried self of what you know now?
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a seminar. There's one thing that's popping up in my brain that is be more, work on being more selfless and not communicative, but work on building community more between people and work on building relationships. I'm 33, and throughout my 20s, I had the idea that I needed to build a business and make a ton of money. Money and business don't do anything without relationships, period. You can't just sit there and, grind a machine and make money out of it just without relationships. If nobody around you likes you and you still make a lot of money, then what's the point? Like, if you don't have friends, a relationship, like a close, intimate relationship, having a lot of money doesn't make any difference. It makes your life easier because you get to buy whatever you need, but it's like, it doesn't matter. So, and it's more fun to build businesses and make money and just go out and enjoy life with friends and relationships that really matter. So, be less selfless and communicate with people more and be giving.
Okay. Great advice. All right, Elyse, same question over to you. What advice would you give your unmarried self?
Number one is very similar to what you said. I'm going to do 1 and 1.5 if that's okay, but I'll be brief. Relationship is everything. So it's like pour the same amount of attention and time and love into that you would pour into anything else that matters and more, because that's the most important part of life. And then 1.5 is everything's a mirror. So anything that triggers you in somebody else is a mirror of something in you that needs to be healed. It's not about the other person necessarily. And that is a very empowering state. It can be a very, it can feel challenging when you realize that everything that's getting triggered in you is about you getting to heal some part of you. But that, I think, has been really important in our marriage too.
That's great advice for our listeners to hear. Everything is a mirror. I love that.
Yeah, it really is.
It all comes back to self.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've talked about that. You guys have mentioned that before today. It's like, well, correct your own junk first and own your own stuff before you try to go out and get involved in somebody else's. And wow, you guys have shared some great stuff with us today. We're so grateful for you taking the time to give us a glimpse into the power couple and a little bit about your life and some of the challenges. We're all works in progress. One of my favorite things is I have feet of clay. I make lots of mistakes every single day, but I get to learn and work together and build that relationship that we want to have. So if our listeners want to find you guys or learn more about you, Elyse, where should people go to learn more about Elyse Archer or Jason? How should we connect with you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I would say I'm at Elyse Archer on all social. And I also I love podcasting. I love this podcast. I know the average podcast listener, I think, listens to 7 podcasts. So if I have the honor of being in the queue along with Kickass Couples Nation, you can check out my podcast, She Sells Radio.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I do not yet have a social platform. It's just generic social media that I don't interact with.
You can see, but I put a lot of behind the scenes on stories of you, whether he likes it or not. So on my stories.
For whatever reason, if you want to find me, in a couple of years, I will be a doctor. So you could find me then. I'll have a platform then.
What kind of practice do you want to go into? You have a specialty, an area that you're thinking about?
Yeah. So, it's going to be, family care, just a primary care physician, along with a functional medicine designation, which means you're looking at the whole body, mind, and spirit as one, which is very different because a lot of the time we'll say you have diabetes, let's put you on insulin, or you have heart disease, let's put you on a statin, instead of saying, you have heart disease. What's your diet like? What's your home like? Where are you living? What are your stress levels? What are you thinking right now? How are you feeling? Like diving into who they are as a person, because you might be able to get rid of a lot of things just by changing one or two things in their life.
Sure.
I love that integrative care. I think we need more doctors like that. So kudos to you. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for being so authentic and real with us today and with our listeners. So grateful to have you.
Fun to get a glimpse of the life stages and the success you guys are achieving together. So thank you. We look forward to learning more and seeing more about the both of you soon.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.